So database first is not covered in your book. It's not a difficult process, but it doesn't always work perfectly, especially in this newer version of .NET. So, you may think that this is the way to go, so easy. Not necessarily, because sometimes it does not. It just doesn't work right. I don't know how else to say it. So you do want to be a little bit careful with database first. I mean, I would definitely, once you get everything all imported, I would just scaffold one controller in views and test that to make sure it works. Then I might scaffold a related one and, see if that works. Because sometimes if you are relating tables, it'll throw errors in the model, and then it won't update the database. Good news is the one that I'm having you guys do is pretty simple and it all works. So you aren't going to have any frustration there. For database first, the server that it uses is the project model server. Okay, so the first server, the MS SQL Local DB, that is for code first. And what you are going to need in order to pull a database in, well, first of all, it has to be in a Visual Studio database project. Okay, and secondly, you need to know the name of the database. Okay, and you need to know the name of the server. Because that information needs to go into a scaffold DB context command that you will add or enter into the console. And then when you run the command, assuming that it's entered correctly, it'll generate all your models for you. Okay, so you start with a database project. And then you will create an ASP.NET Core MVC project. And you will install Entity Framework Core SQL Server and Entity Framework Core Tools. After you have installed that, you can run this scaffold command to generate all of your models. And so you'll see it's server equal. And this has to be the name and the location of the server storing the database file. Well, here is the server. And then there's a semicolon, database equal the name of the database file. And then the rest should look familiar: trusted connection, Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server. That should look fairly familiar. So the one that I'm going to have you pull in has 3 tables: department, employee, and zip code. And so you can see that once I ran that command, it automatically generated a context for me, in addition to the 3 models. Now, the context file is going to look quite a bit different because this is where the code is for all of the properties for each of your tables. Okay, so you're probably going to want to review the context to make sure everything is correct. And one thing that you'll note is that the classes are partial classes, and we'll take a look at that when you generate the models. As far as corrections to data annotations and any of that, you really cannot modify these files directly. You could do some corrections in the Fluent API. There is another technique you can use, however, it doesn't work very well. This is why I said this may look like the easy way to go, but depending on how complicated the database is and the customizations that you want, this may not be your best choice. So be forewarned. Any change that you make to the database project itself requires that you have to regenerate the classes and the context file. Okay, so anytime this changes, you have to run this command. And basically you have to delete all of the current models, and then it's going to generate new ones. So that's why you don't want to go in and start customizing these, because you're going to lose them. So that is kind of a problem. But anyway, you're going to want to definitely review your classes in the context file. Then you're going to update app settings.json to include your connection string, which should be the exact same as code first. And then you're going to want to add your dependency injections to program.cs, which is also the same as code first. And so once you finish that, you can run a build, and you don't need to do migrations here because you already have a database. Okay, so you can just move on to the scaffolding. So the best way for you to understand this process is to download a database. So this hands-on is going to walk you through that process.